everyone, and welcome to this 18th evening of the Festival of Europe. Tonight, we will be visiting two beautiful countries in the heart of Europe, Germany and Austria. My name is Ben Green, and I'll be your moderator for this evening's travels with our two guides. And now, I would like to welcome our first tour guide for the evening, Rick Steves. Guten Abend, Rick.
Ben, guten Abend. I was gonna no. If I speak too much more German, you'll speak back to me in German, and then it'll be clear I don't really speak German. But it's good to be here, and it's so nice to be celebrating our love of Europe together. So thank you, Ben, for the introduction. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. What did Ben say? This is our 18th show. We got 4 more. We're doing 22 events in 22 evenings because there's a lot to enjoy in Europe. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be going through Germany and Austria this evening, and I'm just gonna jump right into our slides here, and we'll bring in our special German guide in a moment. But I want to remind you, we've been having our alumni party for about 30 years until COVID hit, and every January we would invite all the tour alums from our program that traveled with us on our Rick Steves bus tours the last year. We'd invite them to Seattle, and they would pour in. We'd have a couple thousand happy travelers here. We'd have like 6 different parties over 2 days. It was a lot of fun. We want to do that now, but we're doing it virtually. And an associated sort of event with our alumni party was something we call Test Drive a Tour Guide. And Test Drive a Tour Guide means we fly our guides in from Europe, rent out every venue in Edmonds here, and we share our love of Europe with our travelers. Well, we're having a virtual Test Drive a Tour Guide this month, and rather than having everybody fly to Seattle, hey, we're just connecting this way. It's a beautiful thing. Of course, we're selling tours, but we're also excited about people just traveling on their own. So in the next hour, you're going to get a lot of information about Germany and Austria, and whether you're taking a Rick Steves tour, whether you're finding a different tour, or whether you're just picking up a guidebook and doing it on your own, this is going to be filled with inspiration and practical information. I just love to see people with the Rick Steves guidebooks in Europe doing our tours without us. That's what these guidebooks are designed to do. That's how they originated. People were stealing my tour manual for my tour members back in the old days, and I realized, hey, these little manuals are driving decent people to theft. We got to make it available for purchase. So we took our tour manual, we put everything in here that we know to make a good tour, so people who want to be their own guides can. That's what a Rick Steves guidebook is all about, empowering you to travel smartly, enjoying maximum travel excitement for every mile, minute, and dollar in your precious vacation. You don't need to tab it quite as aggressively as this traveler here, but it does help to take your guidebook seriously. And we've got guidebooks for every corner of Europe that are right up to date now. We've been all hands on deck getting these guidebooks post-COVID and up to date, so you can rely on them. And what we want, whether you take a tour or go on your own, is to make it fun and efficient and lively. There's too many people that go to Europe, and it is frankly bland travel. You can do better than that, and if we have anything to do with it, we're going to help you do that. We've had some crazy heritage in our tour program from way back in the old days, and that fun-loving approach to Europe, that experiential approach to Europe, it survives, but now with a much more comfortable and safe bus, with a professional driver, and with the best tour guides, I would say, in all of Europe. So that's our family. We've got 100 hard-working travelers right here at headquarters, and we've got well over 100 guides, mostly Europeans in Europe, that would love to take your travel dreams and turn them into smooth reality. As Ben mentioned, we've had a busy month. You can see here all the different events we've had this month, and now we're coming down the home stretch. Tonight is Germany, tomorrow is the Netherlands, then Greece, then Italy, and then on Monday, our grand finale. It's a party. I've invited my whole staff over, and it's going to be crazy. So I hope you can enjoy these last events. If you missed anything, it's all logged and saved and archived at ricksteves.com. Very easy to find it, and you can pick up on whatever event that you may have missed over the last month. We're giving away free tours. We've already given away 2. Every Monday, we pull a name out of a digital basket. Spencer Swank from Michigan and Sharon Benson from Colorado have won free tours. And on Monday, we're going to draw 2 names. So 2 happy travelers are going to get a 1-week Rick Steves Europe trip of their choice to Paris, Rome, London, or Istanbul. About 100 different departures over 2 years. It's just a great way to put a little festivity into this festival. Can't all win a free tour, but everybody's a winner if you take advantage of our promotional code during this month. If you book a tour this month, you get $100 off. Just use that promo code. Remember, we're going to be going to Germany and Austria right now, and there are so many guidebooks that can help you put that together. We've got 40 different tours around Europe. This is what I like to call our spaghetti map. There's a lot of tours in the Germanic corner of Europe, and that's what we're going to be reviewing tonight. When we get joined by Holger from Berlin in just a moment, we're going to be talking about all of the attractions along the road, but we're not going to be tying it into a different itinerary. There's so many itineraries, so you can see what turns you on and then go to our website and look at the routes. Our Best of Europe in 20 days route, or 21 days, cuts through Germany, a little bit in the Rhine, a little bit in Rothenburg, and then in the Alps of Austria. But we've got tours that specifically focus on Germany and Austria. I'd like to take a quick review right now. Our Best of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland tour in 14 days, flying into Cologne, Baden-Baden in the Black Forest, down into the best of Switzerland, over to Munich in Bavaria, cutting through the Alps to get to Salzburg, beautiful Lake District, Lake Hallstatt, and finishing off with the finale in Vienna. That is the Best of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland if all you have is 2 weeks. If you'd rather focus on Germany, we've got 13 days in Germany, and that starts in Hamburg, and it circles around the Rhine Valley, the Rothenburg, Munich, Martin Luther Country, Dresden, and finishing off in Berlin. If you'd got a shorter vacation in 8 days and you just want the grand cities of the southern region, we got Munich, Salzburg, a little stop on the lakes, a little stop on the Danube, and finishing in Vienna. And if you'd like the Habsburg capitals or all the big stuff in the east, we've got Berlin, Dresden, Prague, Český Krumlov, and Vienna. That is a neat itinerary. I just love nothing more than to get a bunch of travelers together and get them oriented and turn them loose in these great corners. And I know my good friend Holger Zimmer does as well. And this is me and Holger, hard at work in Berlin, updating the guidebook. And we have woken up Holger. It's 3 o'clock in the morning in Berlin. And Holger, guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen, Rick. Good morning to everyone over there in America. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is. And I'm going to do better in just a moment because I'm going to pop open a nice German beer, St. Pauli. What you got
and
there?
Just for the time being, because it's 3 a.m. in the morning, that's what we do here. I have a glass of Mosel just for a little sip once in a while.
Oh, nice.
But hey, the main source in the middle of the night, of course, is coffee.
All right. Holger, I'm drinking St. Pauli. And there's a lot of regional pride in beers, I think, when you go to Germany. And when you go to Munich, there's a lot of brewery pride, isn't there? So there's 6 or 8 breweries that really are beloved. What can you tell us about that sort of scene in Munich and in Germany?
Well, Munich is known, of course. I mean, for me, the 3 Bs go with beer. It's Bohemian, Bavarian, and Belgium. That are the best beers, and Bavaria for sure stands out. And in Munich, once you're in Munich, I think the top one that the locals like is Augustiner, which is one of the few really independent breweries still alive. And the Munich people, they connected it to the city and the rebuilding of the city. So Augustiner is a great one.
Now, this, if you look carefully at this, it says non-alcoholic. And
there you go.
I want to remind
go down well in Munich for sure.
I think that we've got to remember, if you're going to Europe, there's a lot of alcohol. When you see our festivals and our parties, there's always wine and beer. That's fun, but you don't need to drink alcohol to have a good time. I really want to stress that. If you're going to a pub in Ireland, or if you're going to a beer hall in Germany, there are non-alcoholic alternatives. And you can go Prost, and you can be part of the party. So that's an important thing to remember. We're celebrating the culture, and you can pick and choose, and it doesn't have to have alcohol, but it often does. Hey, Holger, you work in Berlin in public broadcasting. I work in public broadcasting here in the United States. Tell us a little bit about your work in Berlin, please.
Well, that's what I've been doing for 20 years. I work in a public radio, which is called RBB Kultur. It's a culture and arts sort of show. It's great because Berlin is the hub. Theater, music, museums, everything is there. And that's what I'm reporting on, and a part of the telling stories about the wonders of the culture and art here in Germany.
And then you can weave into that your work as a tour guide. In fact, we will have your personal email for people who are interested in, or your email, I guess, or your website for people to learn more about your private tours that you offer in Berlin. I'll tell you, whenever I've got some work to do in Berlin, if it's making a TV show, updating a guidebook, you're right there whenever we have need an expert. And it's so great to have you interrupting your night's sleep to be with us today. So thanks, Holger. And let's go right now. And we want to remind people we're going to have a Q&A period later. And right now, I'm just going to let Holger take us around. So Holger, we're going to start in Hamburg. And, Hamburg doesn't have anywhere near the tourism of Berlin as far as Americans go. But what do Berliners think when they look over at Hamburg?
Oh, to me, Hamburg, I've lived there for like ages ago. It's a wonderful city, especially because it's not really on the tourist circuit, but when it comes to German travelers, they all love to go into Hamburg because it has this area. You see the Elbe River right there. It has a harbor. It has a very international feel to it, and also being very beautiful. It has a lot of like turn of the century buildings. It's part is modern. This is the new site to be seen, the Elbphilharmonie, a philharmonic hall right at the former docks, where you can see like an old warehouse now turned into a most beautiful philharmonic hall. And it's basically this idea of seagulls, waterways, and tradition. And really, I think it's the third largest harbor in all of Europe. So it's industry as much as beauty.
And historically, it was a massive harbor. And I was there just a couple of years ago, and it was the big renovation was going on. And I think they were increasing the space of the city by 30% or something like that.
Absolutely.
By renovating this historic rundown wharf area. And now with that Philharmonic concert hall and so on, it's really a destination in itself, I would think.
It's a thriving city, really, and this like enlargement of the city has happened like right next to this old warehouse district from like about 120 years ago, and now it's really modern and lively. Hamburg is very well worth a visit. You see,
and to a lot of Americans, when we think Ellis Island, where the immigrants come in, a lot of Germans would have left from Hamburg, where the boat would go over to the United States. So a lot of Americans have a connection here with Hamburg as the jumping off point for immigration. And what I remember mostly about Hamburg is the amazing harbor tour. And I also remember, you mentioned not many Americans go there, but a lot of Germans do. There must have been 50 tours a day of the harbor, and only, I believe, 1 or 2 were actually done in English. And it's just, the supply will meet the demand, and there wasn't a lot of demand, but it's a massive harbor. It's my favorite harbor tour. And then we come to your hometown now, and Berlin. And I like to always remind people, this is probably the city that's changed more in our lifetime than any other city. This used to be, first of all, this was Potsdamer Platz. This was the Times Square of Germany back in the 1920s. And then, of course, Berlin was pretty much destroyed in World War II. And the wall went right through here. This was no man's land. And now it's a huge, shiny office park, Potsdamer Platz. Quite a spectacle. And you can stand there and see where the Berlin Wall used to run. There's a lot of history from that time. And when we look at the Brandenburg Gate, that was in no man's land. And today, what's the scene around Brandenburg Gate?
Well, it really was like when you look at pictures from, let's say, after the Second World War, this gate was the only thing there, and then there was nothing around. And now basically it's right next to the American Embassy, the French Embassy, the British Embassy, the Academy of Art. So it really has come back to life. A lot of
it's really a festival of life, really.
Of Berlin.
And another thing that struck me last time I was in Berlin with you was, for half of my traveling career, it seems like, Berlin turned its back on the river, the Spree River, because that was no man's land. Now we saw you and me sitting there like at a beach resort, but it was in Berlin having a beer. There are tour boats on the river. There are beautiful grassy lands. And what was Eastern Berlin is a thriving part of the scene. I remember I've done 2 shows on Berlin. I did one a long time ago, and almost everything was in what we called the West. And then I went back and updated it, and I think nearly the entire script was in what was the East. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, the focus really shifted because basically you talked about the river. That was also partly of the no man's land. The wall run right through along the river. And now that the wall is gone and East Berlin basically opened up, there's a lot of happening in these areas like Mitte, Central District, Prenzlauer Berg, little neighborhoods with shops and restaurants. And a lot of life has come back there.
And here's a funky little restaurant that's attached to a ballroom that is in Prenzlauer, right, in the former East. And this is one of my favorite places that you showed me. Tell us what goes on here in the evening.
Yeah, so basically behind there, you see the people eating, and then you go into this little hall, and it's really the Berlin's oldest ballroom that has been going on since, I think, 1913. And it's just like, a wonderful place where old and young meet still to this day and go like dancing, waltzing around, concerts. So, and it looks kind of ramshackle in a way because it's in an old bombed out area. There was a house where people are sitting here. It was a house before. So it's in a backyard there, but it's wonderful and just like a good spirit of Berlin kind of live atmosphere.
And there's that what used to be this wall in this no man's land. They've torn down the wall, but they've taken over it with a vengeance. And now it's a place where people celebrate freedom. This is called the Park of the Wall. And when we go there, you took me to the biggest karaoke festival I've ever seen. What is it? Every week there's this giant karaoke party in the shadow of the wall.
Yeah, for years and years at the Mauer Park, the Wall Park, they had this a guy doing like an open air karaoke, and that's like good fun. You see this little amphitheater that's kind of there holds maybe 800,000 people, and there's always a big crowd there. And in the back, the little tents you see, that's flea market. So that's still every Sunday a flea market going on where people go, and that's the scene on a Sunday in Berlin.
So there's all of this liveliness, the ballroom dancing and the karaoke and the street art and everything. And then you've got this amazing heavy history. And of course, this is the Reichstag. And this was the place where the last days of World War II were fought. I understand Russians against Nazis on the rooftop of their Capitol building, if you can imagine that. For decades, it stood a bombed out hulk on the Berlin Wall in the middle of no man's land. And then 1989 or 1990, the wall falls down. The government goes from Bonn back to Berlin. They need a new Capitol building, a parliament building, and in good European fashion, they don't bulldoze the bombed out building. They renovate it and they incorporate into the top this glorious glass dome. And it's thrilling for a tourist to climb up to the very top of that dome. What's it like for you as a German to visit this dome?
Yeah, it's for first thing is it's a wonderful because they have an amazing view. You're right in the center of town, close to the Brandenburg Gate, close to the former border. So you see all the government quarters. You see the historical heart of the city, but also you can have this idea of just walking up this spiral staircase and not just looking out into the city or onto the city, but also down underneath is where you kind of see the spiral going in there. That's kind of like where just the house of Parliament is. So you can actually look down into the chamber where the legislation is happening. So it is kind of like the idea of transparency as much as the idea of everyone can go. I mean, it's a government building, but if you if you apply or if you just kind of sign up to it, it's free. You can just any person can just go there and just be there on top of the Parliament.
And I had a sense that for Germans, this was symbolic of a way for them to literally look over the shoulders of their legislators and see what's going on in their desks. So the people will, at least symbolic here, keep an eye on their legislators because they've learned a lot from their dark history of the last century. It's an amazing piece of architecture, and it's one of my favorite sites. In front of this is a memorial to the, what's it called, to the murdered, what is the...
Yeah. It's 99 slates, basically designed to commemorate those people who basically were the first to be rounded up by the Nazis when Hitler came to power in 1933. Basically, the first people to be put in prisons and camps were the members of parliament, the voted in like proper members of parliament. Of course, a lot of people you see on the stones on the top of the head, names and where they went from Berlin. A lot of people from SPD, USPD, so basically socialists, social democrats, communists, they were the first people to go. And that kind of shows us how quickly a democracy can turn into a dictatorship. And that's a very powerful memorial right there.
And Holger, it's a very powerful memorial to me when I think of the challenges our country is going through right now, when people were wanting to hang Mike Pence, when people were wanting to execute Nancy Pelosi, or these sort of wacko far-right extremists, well, in Germany, those are the people that took power, and they did exactly that. These first people who were victims and died in concentration camps were the equivalent of liberal politicians in a country that was taken over by a fascist dictator, and it happened. The more we study it, the more chilling it is, and a bigger reminder that we can certainly learn from history, as Germany has done. This is where the Chancellor lives, right across the street. And here we have a powerful memorial to the murdered Jews. And I remembered when Germany made this memorial, it's right out across the street from the United States Embassy, about a block from Brandenburg Gate, where we were talking earlier. It was a big admission on Germany's part. This is the memorial to the murdered Jews. 6 million, an admission that, the Nazis murdered these Jews. And it's a quite a gripping memorial. What do people in Berlin think about the architecture of this memorial?
Well, the thing is, I think I have to say it is one of my most amazing and most, vivid kind of memorials, because on one side you see just these concrete slabs here, right? 2,711 of these concrete slabs. There's no explanation or names or anything, but what you do is when you walk in, it's kind of a maze, right? You walk in through these blocks of stones, and once you're in there with a group, suddenly you're on your own. These blocks, they get really high and they're towering above you. And the idea of this feeling of being kind of left out and suddenly not with a group, not with a society anymore, but alone, that is a very powerful feeling, even on a sunny day with a group of 30 people. So quite often we take groups there, and it's a very strong feeling of like what happens when suddenly your world crumbles around you. And, it's open for interpretation. So Peter Eisenman, the architect, did not put any meaning to it, but it's absolutely amazing to go there and just to see and feel for yourself.
And Berlin is a city of amazing memorials. Like here at the headquarters, the bombed out headquarters of the Gestapo, you have a powerful docu-center. It just documents the horrors of the war and when they were actually burning the books. And look at the glee on their faces as they're burning books. It's amazing. And then Germany was freed from Nazis and right into the other extreme, and they become taken over by the communist Soviet Union, really. And we have also a lot of remnants from that generation, those decades when Germany, after World War II and until the fall of the wall in the late 1980s, until that Germany was part of the Warsaw Pact, Eastern Germany anyways. And we have the horrible wall that was put up to divide the East and the West. And today, fascinating Checkpoint Charlie, where we can learn the history of that wall. This is a huge hit with Americans. And God, there's so much, Holger. And then we get on the bus, go a couple hours south, and we get to Dresden. And what I like about Dresden is it's the capital of a country that existed for centuries until the 1800s, and it still has that sort of pride of Saxony, isn't that right? What was the country?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Saxony, Sachsen, yeah, like a very distinct dialect when it comes to German, different dialects there. But what you see now here is the wonderful kind of panorama of the Frauenkirche, the Church of Our Lady in the middle. That was like an amazing feat, like one of the greatest pieces of architecture, Baroque architecture from the 1740s. And the church in the middle that you see now nicely towering in the very center, that was completely bombed out. So in 1945, it was just a piece of rubble. And now you see it in all its glory. It was rebuilt in 2005. And just like a reminder of how war has destroyed the city, but now the city has come back to life.
Holger, I remember in the earlier days taking my groups there, and every year the cathedral would be higher and higher and higher, but it was a huge undertaking. The international community all got together and helped to pay for the rebuilding of the beloved Frauenkirche in Dresden. And one of the most powerful souvenirs of that tragedy is the burned out cross that was on the top of the original dome. They found that in the rubble, and it now stands in a place of honor inside that beautiful new church. From Dresden, it's just a little ways to Rothenburg an der Tauber. And Rothenburg is every tourist's favorite medieval walled town in Germany. And for 10 years, I was on a quest to look for the, quote, untouristy Rothenburg. And then, Holger, I don't know if I ever told this, but I just gave up. I said, I'm not going to look for the untouristy Rothenburg. I'm just going to embrace Rothenburg. It's touristy for a good reason, because 500 years ago, 800 years ago, it was more important than Frankfurt. Frankfurt was just a little wide spot in the road when Rothenburg was a thriving trading town at the crossroads of two routes. And today, as tourists, we appreciate the mothballed affluence of that medieval trading capital. And one thing I love about Rothenburg is it illustrates, and maybe you can help me on this, Holger, the feudal reality of Germany in the Middle Ages. Of course, we think of Germany today, which is the size of Montana, as one country. But a German knows that people have a regional loyalty, and the Franconians are Franconian, and the Prussians might be Prussian, and the Bavarians are certainly Bavarian. And you must have had a couple hundred little independent fiefdoms and dukedoms. And here we see a map, an old medieval map, and there's the town of Rothenburg that we all know and love in the middle. And it's a reminder that this, I believe, would have been the territory of the independent city-state of Rothenburg. Give us a little thumbnail background on this fragmented Germany in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, before Germany came back to life, it was just a little like a quilt work of like a couple of hundred different little dukedoms and the cities, the so-called Freie Reichsstädte, the kind of free imperial cities who were directly like underneath the emperor. And they basically, like, as you can see, it's a fortified town. It's got walls around it, and it's got the land next to it, basically, that they kind of ruled over. And so that was the land that would feed the burghers, the citizens of Rothenburg. And that was like an arrangement that was quite often the case. So very much pride of place and small.
This would have been the feudal age, and it's, this would have had its own weights and measures, its own dialect, its own curfew, its own laws.
Currency, yeah.
Currency. It's amazing to think about how that evolved into today's unified Germany. In the 1800s, they had a realization, hey, we got to get this crazy patchwork of German-speaking states into one country, and that was the exciting unification of Germany. And part of that was to get a free trade zone that could be powerful. And when Germany was united, immediately it was an economic power. And it was the same dynamic when Europe was united with the EU in our lifetime. You just need that efficiency from free trade. Today, Rothenburg is just beautifully preserved, and I'm just a sucker for Rothenburg. It's got a great medieval crime and punishment museum that tourists find interesting. And this man is named George, but he's really the night watchman, and he gives an amazing tour every night. And don't most of your groups go on that? I just think it's a shame to miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. And George is a great person to really bring us back into this medieval atmosphere of like after hours in the dark. He lights his lantern and he gets people following him around and telling the stories of sieges and battles and defeats and just the wonders of being in a medieval town at night in 1500s.
He plays the role so magically. I'm just enchanted by his rhythm and his humor and his wryness, and that I've known him, I think, for 30 years, and he just does not get old. He's just
absolutely.
Same guy. And then we're going to go to the Rhine River, and the Rhine goes basically from the Netherlands all the way to the Swiss Alps. But there's just a very short stretch that's the famous stretch. It's the romantic Rhine River Gorge, and that's where we have all of these amazing castles and a lot of industry, a lot of tourism, and some beautiful towns. We take a cruise on the river, and we stay in the town of Bacharach. I just love a little Bacharach, and it's your quintessential small town on the river with a castle overhead. I just love Rothenburg. I can't get enough of it, or Bacharach, and it's a good home base for us as we explore the Rhine River and learn about its wines, its fine white wines. And Holger, the wine you're drinking right now is down the next river. This is the Deutsche Ecke, the German corner in Koblenz, where the Rhine and the Mosel River come together. And if we take a turn and go down the small, sleepy Mosel, we find the little sister of the Rhine, which I find more charming and more romantic than the Rhine itself. Here we have the Mosel, much less traffic. You got your corduroy green hills with the rolling vineyards. You got your half-timbered villages and ruined castles. But you've got wonderful Mosel wine. Why don't you, let's take a moment here and enjoy your wine. I'm going to just roast.
Zum Wohl, my friends.
Zum Wohl.
Yeah, it's a Riesling. It's a nice dry white from actually the Mosel Valley. Yeah. So that's a good one to have. The
Nice.
sun is stored in there.
So what do you like better, the Rhine or the Mosel?
Oh boy, I wouldn't really like say this or the other, because the Rhine is the wonderful, the big beast, the quintessential
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, it's the mythical river that, you know, Germans really, there's countless songs and poems being written about the Rhine.
Yeah.
But it's like the smaller sister, kind of more winding, not as
Yeah.
much traffic
Yeah.
in terms of ships and cargo, but both are amazingly beautiful, and you find castles and beautiful tiny villages all along.
And speaking of castles, I would say my favorite castle interior of any castle in Germany is Berg Eltz. And this goes back to the days when Rothenburg was one of those independent little countries and there was 200 little states in what is today Germany. And Berg Eltz is a sort of a romantic, enchanted walk through the forest to get there. And then you step into this castle and it's just mind-blowing how well preserved it is, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just like that's the real deal. If you think about medieval Germany, this is it. You can revisit it. It's been in like I think 40 generations in the same family, like for hundreds and hundreds of years.
In fact, believe it or not, Holger, Herr Eltz, the man who's the owns the castle now, he was thankful for all the business we're sending him with our Rick Steves Germany guidebook, and he invited me to go to the castle after hours, and he took me on a private tour. And it's a real, honest to goodness family that knows their heritage, loves their castle, and loves to share it. Famously, they put fresh flowers in the rooms for the visitors that come along. And this is sort of at the gateway. If you keep going a little further, you get to the Black Forest, the Schwarzwald. And that's where the Germans go for their rest and relaxation. And here you are explaining to one of our groups all the lay of the land here. And this really is where Germany and France come together right along the Rhine River, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can actually, behind me and on this picture, you see already that's France behind you there. So it's the slopes of where the Rhine goes, and that really separates East Germany, and then to the west is France. And it's a wonderful, beautiful, and very kind of picturesque area for walks and hikes as well.
Yeah, and when I look at this picture, I just think how thankful I would be when I'm taking nowadays I don't lead Rick Steves tours, I take them. And I always just feel so thankful that I'm there in the capable hands of a guide who's passionate about helping me enjoy and appreciate his or her country. And here we have a group, and I just think it's fair to say our groups are a little more curious than the average tourists. They have a longer attention span. We are, after all, PBS demographics. And we love to have a guide that shows us the history and then takes us for the best cake in all of Germany. What are you feeding your group here with that mischievous little smile on your face?
It's just wonderful. It's a Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, Black Forest Gâteau, and that involves, of course, a little bit of Schnaps, as it's Germany. But don't worry, it's mostly a lot of cream and cherries. So you should enjoy it. And the little hat I'm wearing, that is a kind of a reminiscence of the old costumes they were wearing, actually.
Nice. Oh, if you're going to talk about hats, I've got to take a moment and where's my hat? I don't think I've ever showed you this. Did you know I have my German hat?
No, that's news to me, Rick. You should wear it more often.
I would, except the problem is my head has swollen over the years, I think, because I bought this when I was with my mom and dad. I was 14 years old.
Well done.
Germans love to have the feather in their cap. And back in the old days anyways, you would buy a pin for every place you've been.
For the places where you've been, and put it there. Yeah, it's good for hiking.
I just love this. And I'm so thankful I have these memories with my mom and dad, And my dad and I had a contest to see who could get the best pins on their hat. And it's a souvenir I treasure.
Tradition, yeah.
Yeah, but that's I've been in a few places where it's a holiday and the men are all wearing that hat. That's for sure. Hey, we're going to go into the Black Forest, and the gateway to the Black Forest is Baden-Baden. Baden, if you see a town with the name Baden on it, means it's a health spa or a mineral spa. And I don't know the exact reason, but Baden-Baden, it just must be the spa's spa, because it is really the ultimate place. And Germans, especially in the 19th century, loved to go to Baden-Baden. It was sort of the Vegas and the Cancun put together, I think, especially during times when Germans couldn't travel out of their country. They all went to Baden-Baden, and you've got the famous casino there, which is about as fancy as the Hall of the Palace of Versailles, really. And our tourists like to go gamble a little bit, and our tourists also like to tour it during the middle of the day. And then you've got just the elegant old spa. Like right here, we have the place where people would drink the mineral water. Is that right?
Yeah. That's where they get the very strangely tasting but wonderful, healthy little water to go on the walks in the park along there. There's a wonderful alley, like a garden full of roses. And then you can hit the spa, and the old one and also the modern one. That's the Caracalla. And that's a wonderful, relaxing part of the tour. Just kind of let it go. And
Now, Caracalla was a Roman emperor, right? Is it
Mhm.
true that the Roman emperors would actually soak in the mineral spas here because it helped their rheumatism or something like that?
That's exactly, the Romans founded it. They discovered all the wonderful, like, hot springs coming out there, and they founded the spa town Baden-Baden.
Wow. And then nearby, we've got an open air folk museum. If you know my books and my guidebooks, I'm a sucker for an open air folk museum. You can find them in every country in Europe. And they gather together these historic log cabins and so on, and windmills or sawmills or schoolhouses or churches from every corner of the region or the country. And they save them. They assemble them in this park. They're protected, and they're beautifully outfitted. And in fact, in a lot of cases, you have people from the staff that are role playing what it was like to live back then and there. Nearby, you've also got a cuckoo clock museum, and cuckoo clocks are a pretty touristy thing, but there's a reason for the cuckoo clock culture in the Black Forest, and you can certainly learn about that. And then we get to what a lot of people call the most livable town in Germany, Millionendorf, Munich, the capital of Bavaria, for 600 years ruled by the Wittelsbach family, right?
Yeah, Wittelsbach.
Why do we call it Millionendorf?
Well, it's basically a tiny village in a way. It's small enough. It's a big city. It's the capital of Bavaria, which is a strong Bundesland, like a federal state within Germany. But it just got this, really relaxed, kind of very Italian feel to it. You see the new town hall here, and it's wonderful Gothic style. In the back, it's the spires of the Frauenkirche there, the main church. But a lot of Italian architecture and a lot of like Baroque sort of style, and that's the part of the residence. Just a very livable city.
So this is the part of the royal palace for the Wittelsbach king. And we have to remember, when we're touring a place like Italy or Germany, generally we're looking at sites that predate that modern country. In 1850, there was no Germany and there was no Italy. There were little states, most of whose names we don't even remember. Each of them had a royal family and crown jewels and palaces and their own regional pride. And the more you are tuned into that in your sightseeing, I think the more enjoyable and meaningful your sightseeing can be. Any German town has a beautiful, beautiful open air kind of marketplace, and that often comes with chestnut trees. And under the chestnut trees, you've got the beer garden. Chestnut trees historically gave you shade, right? And it's kind of when you see a chestnut tree, you kind of think Gemütlichkeit and good beer.
In the beer garden, yeah, that's where they cool down the beers with the shades of because mostly the beer was stored in the vaults underneath. And that's why you could cool it in the summer, so it would be kept fresh. And because we Germans don't like warm beer, we like it cold.
Yeah, and the conviviality. There's some uniquely Bavarian conviviality, and you've got a word for it that I just love, Gemütlichkeit. It's just a cozy time, right? It's a time to be with friends, to enjoy a nice simple meal and some rustic bread.
Yes.
And I have so much fun in the Victorian market. For me, it's my chance to really embrace rustic, tasty German cuisine. What is your go-to place to eat in and around the Victualian market?
I really would actually focus on the market itself, because there's all these little stalls. There's a wonderful little soup kitchen there. You get the best pretzels of all of Munich at the Victualian market at Karnol's. Yeah. And around there's, that's the beauty of Bavaria, that you have these like small little restaurants that are very kind of basic, but you get fresh and wonderful food at low prices, and just like it's not always healthy, but it's always hearty.
The sausage, the sauerkraut, the potatoes, the beer, it's just great. And then you can go to the big park. It's quite a green city, Munich. And I'll just warn you here, there's a lot of nudity here in the Englischer Garden. Are people still sunbathing nude in the English Garden?
I think they do, and they still enjoy it. We like to have the sun on our skins, that's for sure.
You see businessmen stacking their nice clothes in a neat little pile, and then just, there's a lot of tourists going around on their rented bikes, driving into trees. They can't believe what they're seeing, But also an amazing thing in the big park there is surfing. I mean, there's a river that rages through, and it's got this one wake there, and there's people lining up with their surfboards. It's quite a spectacle.
It's the ice bar, and that's right in the center of Munich.
Amazing. And then in that park, the Englischer Garden, right? It's like the Hyde Park or the Central Park of Munich. You've got a sort of a Japanese pagoda, and again, another beer hall with big beers and a lot of people having a good time. When you order a beer, you don't get a little beer like this. This is almost an insulting beer in a German beer hall, isn't it?
Yeah, you really need, I mean, that's Bavaria. That's not all over Germany, but in Bavaria, you got to have a Mass, which is 1 liter. That's like for the grown people here. And in some places you cannot order anything smaller than about 1 liter. So you got to brace yourself, maybe start training at home.
You can get a halb liter, but you'll take a little ridicule. If you don't want to have the beer, you can get what's the half beer and half 7-Up.
Oh, the Radler, for example, that's a good one, which is, or like just like a Spezi, like, you know, you can get like all the other sodas to go with it. That's possible.
Apfelschorle. Is Apfelschorle German?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite summer drink. It's apple juice and sparkling water mixed together, and just it's wonderful in the summer.
I feel so with it in Germany when I want to order a refreshing drink. Apfelschorle, bitte. Oh, here we go. This is the touristy Hofbrauhaus, the most famous and touristy beer hall, and it's a legitimate cultural attraction, and it's just a source of a lot of fun for Germans and for tourists. If you have a dirndl, this is the place to wear it. If you're traveling in Bavaria in the late part of September or early October, there's a reasonably big beer party called Oktoberfest, and it was originally a celebration for a royal wedding, I guess, and it's been going every year for when was the first Oktoberfest, you know?
I think 1810. So it's been going for a while now. So it's a big festivity. And yes, let's face it, it's crowds, but it's good fun.
And when we have a tour, this is a good example, Holger, of how we do our tours. We don't design our tours around, you know, the Passion Play or the tulips of Netherlands or the running of the bulls. But if we're in the vicinity and something's going on, your guide knows it, and if the group wants to do it, you can get up an hour early, you can park the bus and walk in there and have a blast. I've been with 2 of our groups in Munich for Oktoberfest, and it is such an ad-lib, spontaneous, delightful experience, and it's just an experience of a lifetime to go to Oktoberfest. And then you get back on your bus and you carry on, and you head south, and the next stop would be Mad King Ludwig's Palace. This is the castle that inspired Walt Disney, I believe. And we tourists, we say Mad King Ludwig, but he was just romantic. He didn't like Bismarck kind of realpolitik. His favorite friends in the age of Bismarck were opera composers like Wagner. And entire rooms in this castle are modeled and inspired by Wagnerian opera themes. I love to come here and hike up to Mary's Bridge above it just to work up an appetite and enjoy a big view. And then we get to know romantic King Ludwig II of Bavaria, and we go into his palace, which is an amazing tour to me. And we got to remember, this is not medieval. This is neo-medieval. It is neo-Gothic, like so much art in the late 1800s. This was built the same generation as the Eiffel Tower in an over-the-top medieval style. That's Romanticism, and that's why it's nice to have a tour guide to explain this. I would think a lot of your tourists that are coming in there on the bus, Holger, look at that and go, there's a pointy thing. It must be a medieval castle.
Yeah, and it's really like it's the quintessential romantic idealism idea, you know, Germanic romantic idealism. So it really is a fake medieval castle, if you wish. You know, it's designed to hark back to the good old medieval times, but it really was like in the modern time. There's a telephone installed there. There's electricity, the first electricity of Bavaria kind of in this castle. So it's modern as much as harking back to the old style. And it's quite a wonder of architecture and art combined.
And this was during the decade that Germany was uniting, and Germany needed to prove it deserves to be a nation. And to do that, you want to dig up your mythic medieval history and celebrate your King Arthur or your Paul Bunyan or whoever is your medieval hero, and to give your country legitimacy. I love to complement the trip to the fanciful Mad Ludwig's Neuschwanstein Castle by going across the border. You can literally walk from Mad Ludwig's castle to this castle. And here we have Berg Eltz in Austria. And I was leading this tour. This
Ehrenberg, right?
Ehrenberg, yeah, Ehrenberg Castle, and it's in Reutab, just across the border from Fussen. And I really enjoyed this. This happens to be on our My Way Alps tour, and what we'd like to do is hike up there with a little surprise for the group when they get up there is a nice little break, some drinks, and then we have a little free time to let our imaginations go wild in our own private ruined castle. There's so many opportunities to have this sort of magical memory experience. And then we walk across this long suspension bridge and get what a great shot for a great stop for a group shot. Man, that was a fun day. And then we can complement all that history by just getting on the Mountain Luge ride and going down. The ski slopes, they get some use out of them in the summer. They make these slalom courses, and everybody gets to sit on one of these go-karts. And when you push that stick forward, the pads come off the brake and gravity does its thing.
Yoo-hoo.
We have beautiful, beautiful buses. I'm so amazed at the modern buses these days. Seems like they swap out the buses, and they always like to get the latest model, doesn't it? You don't have a lot of old buses on the road. It's just full of efficiency. Now, here today, Holger and I are not talking about Switzerland, but a couple of our routes do go through Switzerland. We did a talk on Switzerland with Robin from our staff, one of our guides, and we do a 12-day Switzerland tour. And some of our best of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland tours, they go through Switzerland, and this is our favorite spot, the Berner Oberland. And it's amazing how you can get up and have access to the Alps if you know where to stop and what lift to take, and you can make a little village your home base. There's so much traditional culture alive in the Alps. I do want to take this moment, by the way, to remind you that we've been at this now for 18 nights in a row, and every one of these talks, including the one that Holger and I are sharing right now, is saved and archived in our website. So you can, any of these, you can, in a moment, you can go back. It's free and it's just filled with information. In fact, right now, I just want to take a moment and go to our website and let's see here. There we go. Yeah. And just take you on a quick little tour, because I've been thinking how much information for people planning their trips is at ricksteves.com. I'm really thankful for the help we've had from our Monday night travel staff and who have been working every day and every night on this for the last 3 weeks, and for all of our tour guides every night. Some tour guide is waking up in Europe at 3 o'clock in the morning to join us. Thank you, Holger. And this is all the shows we've done in the last month. So if you want to go to Scandinavia, you just click Scandinavia, and then you can go there and you can just hit play, and it just...
Oh.
From what, 350 years ago?
Yeah, from this ship was built in the early 1600s.
So there's just an example of something you might be able to decide you want to visit, is the talk on Scandinavia. Also, I want to remind you, on all of our TV shows, they're all logged right here. And somebody might be going to Germany and they might want to know what I would do if I took you around Germany. Well, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shows. That's 4 hours on Germany. And you can just click right in there and watch any TV show we've ever made. You could also look at Classroom Europe. And Classroom Europe takes all of our shows and it cuts them into little teachable bits. This is my gift for school teachers, because I think school teachers are unsung heroes in our society. You go right here, and I just want to show you what you can do. Let's say you are interested in Monet. Boom. And then right here, you've got every clip we've ever done that features Monet. And you go here, and you are...
and built a footbridge, which eventually became overgrown with wisteria. Museums in Paris bloom with Monet's garden paintings. Impressionism was a revolutionary movement in European art.
I'm just so excited that school teachers all over the country are using our Classroom Europe program. So these are just a few of the resources that are available at ricksteves.com. I want to remind you, all of our TV shows, all of our lectures. While I'm into this, I'm just like travel talks. I mean, I don't think a lot of people appreciate. We've got like 40 hours of travel talks here. Let's say you want to know your languages better. We've got a quick primer for travelers right here.
Well, now, normally I wouldn't put yeah in a conversation because I do want you to speak very formally, but you're going to hear it a lot, especially if you're in Paris. So yes, we already know we've got oui. Now, if you want to say yeah, or if you hear the millennials.
So we've got that kind of very practical language lessons. We've got cruising, we've got packing light, we've got all sorts of fun if you would like to learn more and plan your trip. So I'm really thankful for the staff that has put together all of the content in our website. And I just wanted to take a moment here to remind people who are planning their trips that this is a great way to find a resource so you can travel more smartly by learning from our experience. Thank you for that little commercial message. Now I want to get back to Austria. We've just left Germany and Switzerland, and just a couple hours south of Munich, we have a beautiful city. Look at that beautiful cityscape, Holger, Salzburg.
Yeah, you can see like the arrangement of the city already. Like you have the Baroque city with the amazing dome, like the largest north of the Alps, Baroque dome. And then on top of that, you have the fortress, the Hohensalzburg fortress. And then the mountain ridge. So it is a city that is kind of nested between a very fast flowing river and a mountain range. There you can see it. And in between, you have the great little kind of medieval Renaissance looking streets, like pedestrian areas. A wonderful city like that's one of those, Getreidegasse. That's a very famous road there. So a mix of nature, art, and like city life together. And of course, this is where our man was from. You know, Mr. Wolfgang Amadeus was born right there and had his, before he then went to fame internationally, he made his mark in Salzburg, working for the bishops.
And I love the Austrian version of a wine garden or a beer hall. You can go to some of these beautiful wine gardens and you get the Gemütlichkeit in Austria, just like in Bavaria, don't you?
Yeah, the Heurigen places, you know, open air, you know, leafy trees and great food as well. Austria is known for amazing food.
Beautiful, beautiful food. And Sound of Music lore. A lot of Sound of Music pilgrims heading off there. And then south of Salzburg is the Salzkammergut Lakes District. And this is sort of a great place to commune with nature. A number of just delightful little towns. I love Hallstatt. It's a cute little village nestled onto a ledge between a mountain and a lake. And in fact, when you go by train, the train stops across the lake and you get on the little boat and the boat shuttles you over to the town. And I just can't get enough of towns like this in the Salzkammergut Lake District. And our groups love those stops also. Heading into Vienna, we stop on the Danube first, and there's a very romantic stretch of the Danube River Valley. And along that way, we have Melk. And Melk is quite an amazing little town. Tell us about the Abbey in Melk, please, Holger.
Well, that's one of the largest structures actually in Austria with the most windows. It's like it stretches for like lengths. I remember my dad telling me that they had the monks there, because that's a monastery and a school, like a boarding school. The monks actually used bikes to go from one place of the abbey to the next, right? Because it's so huge. But you see this most Baroque glory, and we have a wonderful tour there, and amazing library is there. Yeah. So that really brings us back to the times there.
And in a case like this, a lot of times, even though our guide like Holger could give the tour, in many cases along these itineraries, we really like to hire a local guide who can give us a more intimate and a different angle. And it's fun to have different voices. One of the most powerful experiences on this route is Mauthausen. And of course, it's almost a matter of respect to the victims of the Holocaust that we learn from our experience, and we do visit a concentration camp. I try to work in a concentration camp into the various itineraries, and Dachau is the convenient one near Munich, and that's plenty powerful. If you go to Poland, outside of Krakow, we've got Auschwitz. I really find the concentration camp at Mauthausen to be a gripping experience, and it is right on the Danube in an old quarry, wasn't it, Holger?
Yeah. They actually put it up on a little, like on a hillside. And this is, you can see like this, they call it the stairs of death, which it's a very sobering little stop on the way. And this is the quarry where they used to work the people to their death. And that's, it's a gripping memorial, and one of those days where there's a lot of talk and reflection going on a tour.
A lot of reflection, and to walk that stairway of death, knowing that, Hitler kept people alive only as long as they were able to work and produce for the armaments or the industry of his regime, and people would work until they died. It's a powerful, powerful pilgrimage as far as I'm concerned. And then we come in to the eastern capital of Europe, the rival of Paris, the home of the Habsburgs, the grandest palaces in so many ways, and that is the great city of Vienna. Of course, Vienna was the head of the Habsburg Empire, giant, vast, multinational empire that essentially started and lost World War I. Consequently, it lost its international holdings, and what was a country where the minority of the people spoke German now became a tiny little truncated empire, or country that had no empire at all, and with a navy that was just a couple of police boats on the Danube. And it feels like a head without a body, because you have the grand palaces and sort of the trappings of an empire, the capital of an empire, but really a little country that's been there, done that, and now just has long vacations and beautiful chocolate cake and wonderful parks. How would you characterize Vienna?
Oh boy, Vienna is to my mind top notch when it comes to a livable city in Europe. That's, we can see like the facade of the Stephansdom, the St. Stephen's Cathedral. That's the heart of town. But the most amazing thing is it is so pedestrian friendly. It's public transport, it's green, it's walkable, and also it houses the most amazing museums full of the art that the Habsburgs collected. And that's really something that I think, if you really want to dive into what Europe is all about when it comes to coffee houses, great food, great art, and amazing architecture from the turn of the century and before, that's Vienna for you.
And you have that heritage that goes for centuries. I mean, this must be 1,000 years old, this crown of the Holy Roman Emperor. And you've got the whole Schatzkammer, the treasury. I love a German Schatzkammer. When you think about it, there's treasuries, aren't there, in all these capital cities? You've got them in Vienna. I can think of the treasury in Munich. I can think of the treasury in Dresden. It was a big deal in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and then you have this, along with this capital imperial city and the big, like, let's say, the rulers, right? You have the ruling family's lifestyle, and that goes back to, like, splashing out, showing off with these grand parades and the horses, the Lipizzan horses. So that is still part of the fabric of Vienna, this grandeur,
And then the Habsburgs were great patrons of the art, weren't they? And when you have money going to the arts, you have great art. And if you were a struggling musician or a talented composer and you wanted work, you would likely see if you could get yourself to Vienna, and then you could find yourself jamming with Mozart or Haydn or Beethoven or Strauss. What an environment. And you've got the opera house and this love of music and keeping high culture accessible to the masses. If the opera may be sold out, but you'll have a live streaming of it right there outside, and they actually put out chairs so people can enjoy it. It's free. Yeah. And if you want to just go upstairs and do the student or the standing room tickets, you can, for $5, go and enjoy some of the best opera in the world. Oh, baby. And Strauss, he was the pop star of the day, 140 years ago or whatever. And his spirit is still there. I swear, Venetian hearts beat in 3/4 time. What do we have here? The purpose-built Kunsthistorisch Museum. I love this. This was built for the art, and it's just filled with the great art through the ages and across the vast Habsburg Empire. Tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned it earlier, that Heuriger culture and the vineyards just at the foothills of the Alps.
And that's quite an amazing feat of Vienna, because Vienna is a big city, but also within like a tram ride of like 20 minutes, you're on the outskirts, the Vienna woods, the Wienerwald, and right there, actually Vienna is a city where the most wine is actually grown in the city limits, within the city limits. So you can actually go there, and the Heurige means like this year's wine, the wine of the year. And basically is this culture kind of similar to the beer garden culture in Bavaria. You're out there on a rustic bench, you get local food like good spreads and wonderful meat and potatoes, and you can try the local new wine coming along inside, right close to nature. And that's something that is very, special to Vienna.
Think about how charming and how accessible and how just welcoming all that culture and history is. I mean, like you said, you've got more vineyards within the city than, as far as I know, any other place. And when you're in downtown Vienna, right at the Opera House, you can hop on a tram, a trolley, and go all the way up to a viewpoint high above the town in the Vienna woods. And then you can walk through the vineyards, and you can come into this vintner's restaurant, and you can have some new wine and have a nice lunch and continue walking back into the town. And, the food in Austria is tasty, and it is quite affordable. And if you like your sweets, you've got a world famous chocolate cake there, the Sacher Tort. And Holger, we're going to take questions in just a moment, and I'm really thankful that our Monday Night Travel crew is able to organize these questions, and we'll ask those of you in a moment. But let's just review the different itineraries. In just like less than a minute, can you walk us through this Best of Germany, Austria, Switzerland in 14 days tour, starting in Cologne and finishing in Vienna, please?
Yeah, so 3 wonderful countries in one, featuring kind of the Western side, the Catholic side, Cologne with amazing cathedral. That's where we start. Head down to Baden-Baden, the spa town we talked about. Go right into the Berner Oberland, Mürren, my top favorite little village on top of a mountain range, just right there. Munich, Salzburg, and then after a wonderful one night in Lake Hallstatt along the lake, if the weather's good, you can just dive right into the really cold lake. Then we head up finally in Imperial Vienna. So that gives you a good idea of what this southern part of Germany, Austria, Switzerland is all about.
Holger, I don't know if anybody could wake me up at 3:00 in the morning and have me talk to 5,000 people for a whole hour and then be as eloquent as you like that. You're just amazing. Thank you for doing this. In fact, you're so good, I'm going to ask you to do it again. Okay, here we have 13 days for the Best of Germany. I just love hearing you walk us through that. Take another minute, please, and tell us what we would do here.
So we start really in Hamburg, which is my favorite city after Berlin for sure. It's a wonderful place that not many people know. We talked about that. And then we go into a tiny place in Lower Saxony. Going through Cologne, have the tour of the Cologne Cathedral. Going onto the Rhine, that's the Bacharach stop. So we're right in this quintessential romantic Rhine business. See medieval Rothenburg. Head into Munich for 2 nights there, seeing all the art and architecture, and Munich as the rise of National Socialism. That's part of the game there. Then with some stops in between, we go to Erfurt, which is Lutherland, where Martin Luther in this area would kind of study and teach, and have 2 wonderful nights in a town that not many people know, but it's also like this mix of romantic and Renaissance, beautiful architecture. And with a day trip to Dresden, seeing all the sites in the Frauenkirche, we head up to the cream of the crop, of course, Berlin, my hometown, and finish the tour there. So it's really this mix of Protestant, Northern Germany, Catholic, Western and the South, and then coming into Prussian Berlin. So you got the really good mix of everything.
I like that. And last time I was in Munich, my guide there was explaining to me that a lot of people call Munich the northernmost Italian town because it has that connection with Italy. Here we have a shorter look, and it's sort of a greatest hits of this section. We got 8 days, and we start in Munich, and then we head over to Salzburg. We visit the Salzkammergut Lake District, that little town bullied onto a ledge between a mountain and a lake. We do the beautiful stops along the Danube River Valley, and we finish with 2 days in Vienna. Boy, when you are doing a tour like this, you're just a hop, skip, and jump from some other beautiful places, so you could extend your trip into Budapest or Prague quite easily. Here we have 12 days, starting in Berlin and working our way to Vienna, through Dresden and into the Czech Republic for Prague. And, the Rothenburg an der Tauber of the Czech Republic would be Český Krumlov. I just think that's an amazing town. And here we go to Melk on the Danube and finish in Vienna. Remember, all the Rick Steves tours were very adamant about including the sightseeing events with no extra cost. A lot of people, they get you on the bus really cheap, and then they take you shopping for kickbacks, and they sell you optional tours if you want to do anything. They park you out of town so you don't have any choice. We park you right downtown in the middle, and we include all the sightseeing. We've got small groups between 24 and 28 on a bus with 50 seats. So basically you get 2 seats per person, much nicer than 50 people packed onto a 50-seat bus, I can tell you that. Most importantly, you get the full-time services of a great guide. If you enjoy Holger, as I do, you know that you get this quality of guide when you take a Rick Steves tour, something I am so thankful for. And we couldn't do our tours without our wonderful European guides. All the accommodations in memorable centrally located hotels. Memorable means characteristic. That means not international class. That means a little bit of funkiness. Not everything works. You might have to carry your bags up a couple of flights of stairs. It's in a good location, and it's run by friends. I love our hotels. I wouldn't trade them for the fanciest high-rise hotel in all of Chicago. And then you get all your breakfasts and half your dinners, and all the tips are included, of course. And most importantly, you're going to have a stress-free opportunity to enjoy the very best of whatever country you choose to visit in a relatively small amount of time. Part of our program for helping people do tours without us is that we give away our 65 most important city walks and museum walks with these self-guided tours. And I spent a lot of time and energy in the last year visiting about 50 of these 60 audio tours and updating them. We'll have the whole entire Rick Steves Audio Europe app up to date and refreshed in about April, in just a couple of months. But this is free. Go to the App Store and look for Rick Steves Audio Europe, and you've got me in your ear if you would like, as you visit all the greatest sights and walks of Europe. My very first book I ever traveled with was called Turn Right at the Fountain. That was back when I was a teenager. And it was just a bunch of self-guided walks. And I was just enchanted, enthralled by that book, and it stuck with me ever since. But I'm just, as a teacher and entrepreneur, it just turns me on to no end to find people all over Europe with me in their ear laughing at my jokes and enjoying the art and the context and the culture of all these amazing sites. I want to remind you, we're giving away a free tour every week, and next Monday is our grand finale, and it's 2 tours. If you want to get your name on the list, you can do it. If you go to the landing page at ricksteves.com and you go into the festival, right there in the top, it says all about our giveaway, our tour giveaway, and you click on there, and you've even got the entry blank right there. It takes about 30 seconds to put your name in that, and then there's a good chance. Well, there's not a good chance. There's a tiny chance that you could win a free tour, but what the heck, give it a whirl. Everybody's a winner when it comes to signing up for a tour with a discount during the festival until the 31st, until the end of the month. If you sign up for a tour, you get $100 off if you use the promo code. I asked my staff just to figure out how many departures still have seats available and how many seats are available. We're trying to take 30,000 people to Europe next year. We've got about 28,000 seats sold, and here you can see roughly how many seats are left on the different tours. Lots of opportunities to hop onto a tour in 2023. Tomorrow, I'm going to be joined by another of our guides from the Netherlands and Belgium, and we're going to talk about our Heart of Belgium and Holland tour. And that'll be a fun night. And then I also want to remind you, our grand finale is Monday. And Monday, I've invited the staff over. We're going to have a house full of people here, and we're going to show some great little entertaining clips, and it's a party. So I hope you can join us then. And right now, I just want to remind you, all of us here at Rick Steves Europe are thrilled to be a part of your travel plans. And it's just been a delight to have Holger with us at 4 o'clock in the morning. So Holger, Ben, I bet we got some questions for Holger.
Absolutely. And Holger, Rick, thank you both for transporting me and the rest of our travelers tonight back. I'm imagining myself on the Rhine with a nice glass of wine.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very nice. I'm with you, Ben.
And we do have some excellent questions, quite a few on Christmas markets from Christina, Beth, and several others. Which city do you think has the best Christmas market, and is it worth going to more than one?
Good question. It's always worth going more than one because there is such a variety. I just did a Christmas market tour last winter, and and really like many, it's not easy to just say pick and choose. I would just go, if you go down like the southern route, like along Munich, Nuremberg. I mean, Nuremberg is the most famous one, you know, the Christkindlesmarkt, that is kind of where things originated in a way. But I would say every city, also small villages, have their own markets, and they're all worth going. And just try to be like more, try to find the ones more closer to the city center, because then quite often they have the more traditional wear. The one that I really liked, last December was the one in Munich in front of the main town hall, because they really have not just any old plastic stuff made in somewhere else, but like the proper handicrafts, arts and crafts. So I think really you can't go wrong. If you come in the first 2 weeks of December, somewhere in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, you'll be very happy.
Hey, Holger, my experience at a Christmas market in Germany was they don't let you sell any, little knickknacks that are imported from far away. It's all local craftspeople.
For the most part, yes.
And that's really, to me, that's elegant. It's a beautiful scene, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
A few of our viewers asked about northern Germany beyond Hamburg. Is it worth spending time in northern Germany, or should people in Hamburg just go straight to Berlin?
No, absolutely worth it. I think it's kind of underrated, because most Americans know Bavaria, because from being stationed there, having this idea of like the beer drinking culture, yes, but there's so much more in Germany. Close to Hamburg, there's Lüneburg, a wonderful kind of Renaissance town, like half an hour away. You have Lübeck, the head of the Hanseatic League, also with amazing architecture and feats of this trade history, right? And then if you go like north of Berlin, for example, you have Stralsund, you have Rostock, you have like in the former Eastern Germany, wonderful towns right by the seaside. So I would just say, please come to northern Germany. Do so.
Hey, Holger, I am guilty as charged. I am an American. My orientation is Bavaria. I've grown to love Berlin, and I have a real place in my heart for Hamburg. There's something very cool about Hamburg. But this is by far the best-selling guidebook in the United States of Germany, and it doesn't even talk about those places you're talking about.
You got work to do, Rick.
I got work to do. So we've got, what do we have here? 1,000 pages, and we still got more to do in Germany. It's an amazing country.
But yes, please come to the north of Germany, like Baroque, like, the red tile buildings, great artworks, great churches, and quite pristine. You can just have a nice tour along the seaside, the Baltic Sea, for example. Or the North Sea, and there you go. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there any difference in the German language in Germany and Austria?
Oh boy. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. So, I'm from Germany, like proper Germany. So I speak High German, Hochdeutsch, and people immediately, if I'm in Austria, people immediately spot me as a German. And vice versa. So if I hear an Austrian talk, it is very, easily to discern. It's a dialect in a way, not a proper each language. So Swiss German, that's a different beast altogether. That is an own language that I have I don't know what they're talking about, but that goes for the little villages. Even in Switzerland, they don't know from one village to the next because it's so strong. But yes, there's big regional differences, and for sure there is a difference between Germany and Austria.
George is curious about the sort of divisions in Germany. Which geographic division do you think is larger, North and South Germany or East and West Germany?
Twofold. The North and South would probably be more the one that is coming with history, like, the old division of like the Protestant North and the Catholic South. That's kind of a cultural ridge that was there like for centuries. And the East and West you're talking about is probably along the lines of the division in the Cold War. West Germany being part of the capitalist Western system, free market economy and everything, and East Germany part of the Eastern Bloc. So that is like only recent, but of course it's still a big thing, because we had 40 years of separation from 49 to 89. Two German states were kind of opposed to each other, right? So on one side the bad communists, on one side the bad capitalists, so that is still there. But I would say the more gradual kind of rifts between, let's say, the Protestant work ethic in the north, and the more lenient and happy-go-lucky Catholic in the west and the south are also there. So both are valid, but in their own way.
And you know that we all know the Iron Curtain. There is a border this way that goes back much, much farther, and that was the border between the Roman Empire and barbarian Europe beyond the Roman Empire. And it is interesting that that border mirrors the border between Protestant Germany and Catholic Germany. And if you think about the difference between northern and southern United States, you've got a different culture from north to south. You think about difference between many countries that way. You feel that in Germany. In Bavaria, people enjoy life expertly. And I think in the north, people enjoy getting the job done.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Rick.
A few practical travel questions next. Is there a best time of year to visit Germany and Austria, would you say?
I mean, these days, to me, to be honest, I really love the springtime. And Berlin, for sure, don't come in winter. It's a dismal place in winter. Please come in the summer if you can. But in general, I would just say the nice kind of, getting up to summer, kind of springtime and autumn can be really beautiful. September, October, we had wonderful golden Octobers recently. So I would just say, but if you like sunshine, come in summer. I mean, it's nice and hot and you got to sweat it out, but there you go. It's part of the game. So I would say any time between May and October is a good time to travel.
Hey, Holger, in my whole life, I've been having a nice lunch at a beer garden with my sausage and my kraut and my big pretzel and my beer. And only in the last decade have I find myself grabbing my lunch and running for cover when the monsoon hits. It's hot and muggy in the summer, and you can get that hot all day, muggy all day, and then the rain just comes down at the end of the day. We really do feel a little bit of the impact of climate change in many ways in Germany. You see cities that have flood walls that are built up. Hamburg's got elevated embankments. Cologne, I believe, is prepared for a flood, and a lot of the river traffic is struggling because of unpredictable water levels and the ski slopes. There's no ski slope in Europe that doesn't make its own snow these days, and hotels are still scrambling because a lot of them don't have air conditioning. And it's routine for me when I'm working now to be working in August in Germany with the TV crew, and it's in the 90s every day. So we're feeling
hot,
climate change. Yeah.
Both countries have fairly comprehensive public transportation. Do travelers ever need to rent a car, or should they mainly stick with the train and bus?
I think it's a bit of a personal decision how much comfort you like, basically, but you can get around in more or less everywhere with like good train connections all across Germany or Austria. That's more or less efficient. and I think it's just like if you want personal freedom, then you just kind of pay for the gas, pay like the parking. Parking is difficult in the cities for sure, or at least expensive, but hey, then you can like stop and go as you please. So it's more like, if you're conveniently traveling from one big city to the next, take the train. If you want to meander and see little things on the side, little villages and stop wherever you like, then just rent a car.
You said public transit is more or less efficient or more or less convenient. That's from a German perspective. Your public transportation is unfathomable to an American. Unfathomable. I'm from Seattle to Portland on a train. Good luck. From Cologne to Frankfurt, there's probably 4 trains an hour that just go faster than you could drive.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right. Just one more question left for this evening. From Catherine. She's curious, what region of Germany or Austria is your favorite, and what keeps pulling you back to that area?
Tricky one, because I really do love, I'm from the center of Germany in Hessen, Hesse, like north of Frankfurt. And that's a wonderful, like little hills, and then rivers and a lot of forest. So I'm kind of a forest guy. But really, to be honest, I love it by the seaside. So if you want to explore something that you haven't done yet, go northeast of Berlin to Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Pomerania, at the seaside, beautiful little towns, also like, trade routes that you can follow. It's basically it's flat, don't expect like the hills or the Alps or whatever, but it's a wonderful atmosphere right there. And I would just say that is an area that needs exploring if you want empty spaces, not that many people, and just like the landscape and walks and hikes to yourself. So I would recommend that. Go to the seaside north of Berlin.
Nice. Wow. Ben, thank you so much for moderating and those great questions. And Holger, you're amazing. I'm so thankful for our friendship and for our partnership, and wish you all the best. We'll see you next time I'm in Berlin for sure. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and remind you that we're just here together celebrating our ability to be able to travel and to get friendly with this world. And when you can connect with people like Holger as you travel, you're on the right path. Gute Nacht, gute Reise, danke
Schlaf
sehr.
gut. Have a good evening.
Zum Wohl. Zu alles.
And see you down the road in Germany, all right?
You betcha. Ciao.
Peace.
Good night, Holger. Sleep good.
Gute Nacht.
Good night, Ben.
Good night, Rick. Good night, Holger. Good night, everybody.
See you soon.